Michel Doukeris is the CEO of AB InBev, the largest beer brewer in the world. Prior to being named chief executive, Doukeris filled several executive roles within the company, including president of its China and North American regions. In this episode of Influencers, I'm joined by the AB InBev CEO as we discuss the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on the beer business, the AB InBev footprint around the world, and what the company is doing to keep up with emerging trends in alcohol consumption. And welcome to Influencers. I'm Andy Serwer, and welcome to our guest, Michel Doukeris, CEO of AB InBev. So nice to see you, Michel.
Nice to see you as well.
So you've been CEO since July of this year, and you have, 600 brands, 150 countries. It's a giant company, and I'm wondering, what sort of surprised you the most since taking over as CEO?
So you know that I've been with the company for 25 years, and I think that would be strange to say that something really surprised me. But I did spend a lot of time with people, talking to them in the first 100 days. Sometimes people are very busy announcing things, doing things. I took a route of talking to people, listening to them, and then in this area of maybe surprises, what came across very strongly was our people really love the company, really engaged. They really want to advance our strategy and execution. They were really looking forward for us to make some moves. For example, the one that we did with our purpose. We had this well-established purpose that served us very well to this point. But at one point in time, I think that we missed the opportunity to evolve, because everything around us was moving, transforming, and changing. And our purpose was no longer as inspiring as it could have been. And with this new idea of dream big to create a future with more cheers, we see now the energy in the office. I'm sure that you walk around, the engagement of people moving up. And this is a much broader umbrella that brings us not only what the category represents to people, which is this nice word cheers, that has to do with celebrations, diversity, inclusion, prosperity, but is also very close to the core of who we are, like a beer company. And this came very well from the conversations with people. Then when you think about talking to investors, to analysts, maybe the biggest surprise was people repeating a narrative around beer declining, beer is not growing, beer is losing share, and without data and without facts. And we just put together this week to the investors a very nice compilation of Euromonitor with 100 countries showing the last 10 years, the last 5 years, and the next 5 years projection. And the facts are very clear. Beer had an issue in between 2010 2015 where the category stopped growing and then was even in a little decline. But in the last 5 years, the category is growing globally, very healthy. It's a very big and profitable category. And the forecast from Euromonitor is that we'll continue to grow in the next 5 years. And even more exciting is that across different categories, beer is the one that has one of the lowest levels of premiumization. And because of the brands we have, you quote very well, we have 500 brands globally, some of the most iconic global beer brands that you see out there. We have a lot of headroom for premiumization in the years to come.
So much to drill down there. I want to ask you about the pandemic, though, specifically in your business, Michel, because obviously that's rocked everybody's business, including yours. In what way did the pandemic specifically impact your company, and how specifically have you responded?
In many, many ways. I think that every time that I talk about the pandemic, I always start from businesses. They come and go. Opportunities, they come and go. But this pandemic brought some things that are hard for you to deal with. So a lot of people that we all know, they had losses that are losses that you cannot repair. And we are always trying to do everything that we can to be close to these people and have our prayers and our thoughts with them. But from the business standpoint, I think that was very disruptive for the supply chain, especially when you think globally. We had an advantage early on, given the footprint that we have. We saw this happening in Asia, moving to Europe, so we could learn from what was going on. And we prepared ourselves very well with three priorities, like the safety of our people, business continuity, and how could we support the communities around us, because we are very local as a beer business, right? So beer happens in the country, in the state, in the city where we have operations. It's either on our breweries or with our wholesalers. We are very close to the communities. And then in doing that, we first used all the resources we had to make sure that our people, they were safe in our operations. And we had like outstanding practices that we used globally to protect our people. Business continued to go on through the pandemic, which was very interesting because the category then proved to be very resilient. And beer is this kind of sense of normalcy, right? So people could not go out, could not go to the theater, could not travel, but they could all go to a grocery store, buy some beer, and have some good time at home cooking or on a barbecue or just unwinding, right? And then in terms of supporting the communities, we did a lot, from building hospitals in Brazil to supporting the vaccination campaigns here or in Africa, to having our teams really partnering with community partners to bring not only normalcy, but also solutions from the moment of the pandemic. And the main disruption that everybody's still dealing with, not only in beer, but across all categories, is supply chain. Right. So commodities prices went up, aluminum disappeared because overnight people stopped going to bars and everybody was buying convenient packages in convenience stores and groceries. So just imagine resetting your entire footprint to sell more cans than bottles or draft beer. So this is a massive change. And then when you have the reopening, it's all over again on the other direction, right? So now you have cans, then you don't have bottles, then people are struggling with draft beer. But we've been adjusting well. We've been using a lot of data and analytics throughout the entire pandemic to very quickly shift from one side to the other, anticipate a little bit the movements, and have a good service level to the customers.
Yeah, that consumption mix that you've been talking about, which is going from the bars to the home and now back to the bars, and then how that informs you in terms of what kind of containers is something I didn't even consider. That's fascinating. I want to get maybe a really current update with you this week about the pandemic and Omicron, because I know you have a footprint in South Africa, and I'm wondering if you can share anything with us, what you're hearing there.
I think that at this point, probably as much as you are. So we have our people there. We are, again, making sure that we are protecting them. We are making sure that we can ensure business continuity and help and support the communities. The news that we get every day from the front are like available public information. So cases going up, not so much in terms of people going to the hospital. And this is something interesting, right? Because the worst case scenario is, again, when people go to hospitals and people have losses. So we continue to monitor. At this point, I think that is pretty early to give any type of projection or opinions. And we are working there pretty close to the government, health authorities, making sure that we can support with whatever we can.
I want to ask you a little bit about the business, and for people here in the United States, you have these iconic brands, of course, Budweiser, et cetera, that people know, but how big is the U.S. in terms of your global business right now?
Oh, it's the biggest country that we have is the U.S., and it's been like this for a while, and a very important one, given the brands that we have, even more important when you think about trends. I think that one of the big advantages of having like a global footprint and being a company like ours is this ability of learning from the good part of our scale. Usually people talk a lot about scale in the past was very good, then became a liability because disruptors can attack you. I do think that there is some beauty on the scale that we have and in the size, because trends, they show up in different places. You see what's happening, for example, in the United States and Canada with this so-called fourth category, right? The intersection between wine, hard liquors, and beer. And a lot of things happening there. Seltzers, ciders, ready-to-drink cocktails, things that we can learn here. Then we have an opportunity to pilot or to partner with some brands. When we get this right, we can quickly deploy this globally with the scale and the footprint that we have. So I think that the US is very important, is our biggest country in which we operate, has been for years sliding, and we are in the last 3 years in a good turnaround. So top line is growing. We know that bottom line follows top line. Our portfolio is much healthier today. We have brands growing very well. Brands like Michelob Ultra, Stella Artois, Cutwater. They are really accelerating the transformation and the rebalance of our portfolio in the US. And you put together Canada, which is another North American market, same zone, is doing very well as well. So it's an industry that was in decline for like 10 years. And we had a business in decline for 10 years. Now we expanded our portfolio to this Beyond Beer, and we find ourselves in an industry that's growing with a business that's growing. So huge turnaround, very happy with the results over there.
I'm so glad you brought up that fourth category, because it's so compelling on the one hand, but so confusing. Certainly from a consumer standpoint, I go into a store and I see all these different bottles and drinks, and I don't even know where to begin to experiment. It must be challenging for you to sort of pick your spots, as you say. And at first it was hard seltzer, but as you say, of course, it's blending all these different drinks together. Can you talk about how specifically you're positioning the company there?
Yeah, this is new for everybody.
Yeah.
Of course, I think that if we step back for a second, and I'll give you some information, you tell me how much you want to take. But it's like, when you think about all the beverages, usually you have like 5 to 10% of the volume that is really like the latest innovation. And you think about energy drinks, it's like this. You think about soft drinks, it's like this. You think about water, right? People for years and years thought that nobody could innovate in water, because water is water. And we just saw a few years ago the seltzer with flavor and no calories, nothing added, exploded in the US and in some other markets. So there is always like this 5 to 10% of the industry that's innovation that comes and goes. Sometimes some of these innovations, they stay longer. In the alcoholic beverages, though, is very interesting, because what we've been seeing is that this space between wine, hard liquor, and beer is a space that has become like almost like a void for a lot of innovation to come. And when you think from the consumer standpoint, all the categories, they have benefits, but there are some barriers for you to address, right? So think like in a simple way. People have been talking a lot about how sugary and high calorie wine is. After all these years of people only talking about the benefits of wine, people start paying attention on calories and sugar in wine. When you think about the hard liquor, is this idea that one is hard liquor, so a lot of alcohol. Two, you need to mix, and then people never really pay attention of the amount of calories in a cocktail, but there is a lot of calories there. And a lot of people think about the convenience, because I don't really like to drink the hard liquor. What I really like is the cocktail. But the cocktail cannot walk with me from the bar to the walking, to the mountain, to the barbecue session. In beer, people talk a lot about, especially young people, that sometimes it's too bitter, that they like more flavor, more Starbucks type of flavors. People talk about calories, sometimes in beer. And these new beverages, they've been finding a way to solve some of these issues and to provide a solution to underserved consumers. So think about this consumer that likes cocktails, but he cannot have a cocktail on the barbecue or at the beach. Then you have a ready-to-drink cocktail. We have, for example, Cutwater. Brings delicious cocktail in a can you can carry anywhere. Think about the seltzers, and they bring this flavor from the flavored seltzer, but they don't bring gluten.
Right.
They don't bring sugar, as wine brings. So there is people that go for this gluten-free, no sugar option in seltzers. And the way that we see this shaping up is basically like 3 segments. One that is this very simple, more flavored type of beverage. In the US, they call like malt flavored beverages. Right. You have the Limeritas, you have the ready-to-drink bottles with a lot of taste. Then you have one specific that's light and refreshing, where seltzers happened, but you see, for example, in Canada, is ready-to-drink vodka soda, right? So convenient in a can, you know, you control how much alcohol you're having, you can carry whenever you go. And the third one is the more complex, like these ready-to-drink real cocktails that you can also have today on a can, where you can control the ABV, you know that the taste is going to be always great taste, and you can carry and have the cocktail at your convenience, wherever you want to go, in a stadium or in a barbecue. So those are 3 spaces. We have plays and brands in each of these states. They manifest a little bit different country by country, right? But they are like global trends.
And so you talked about it before, there's always the 5 to 10%, and that this is sort of reflects that thinking. Yeah. And so does that mean this is here to stay, or is it just the same as it always is, that some of it will stay and some of it won't stay?
I think that's both. I think that these trends, some of these products will stay, and will stay for longer, because they will find a very good opportunity to solve these consumer problems, and then they will become part of the repertoire. And some of these trends we have seen in the past, they come and go because the product is very good, but doesn't have a very unique place in consumers' mind and in consumer repertoire. Of course, if you think about beer, beer has thousands of years, is always part of people's repertoire, will continue to be very relevant, but as consumers start having more choices, it's only normal that people start trying different beverages in different occasions. So there is no such a thing as a only wine drinker,
right,
or only beer drinker. So people go through categories for occasions, and they switch things around. So this 4th category is a very good opportunity for the beer companies because of the capabilities that we have, right?
And just one last follow-up on this. So where are they taking share? It doesn't sound like you're saying they're taking share away from beer, because you're saying beer is growing, but are they taking share away from wine or hard liquor or water?
Yeah, the numbers are very clear. You look at different countries and different companies providing this, but what we know is that at least 50% of this volume comes from hard liquor and wine. In some products, in some regions, this can be as high as 80%. It's incremental and expands the possibilities of the beer category, and it takes from occasions that are often dominated by wine and hard liquor.
You've had a day this week with analysts and investors, and I want to ask you a little bit about what they're looking for specifically when it comes to the P&L and the balance sheet, how the business is running. Margins are so important right now with supply chain and pressure there. What did they want to hear, and what did you tell them about that?
Yeah, I think that, again, if you look at our company, over the long term, it's a great value creation story in which we delivered incredible results. Our strategy was very focused and very simple, repeatable, focused on inorganic growth. And we are now transitioning, evolving this strategy to be more a organic-driven growth story. And this is only possible because some of the competitive advantages that we built over the years, they now come together on what I call like the ABI ecosystem. And that's interesting because over the years we put operations together in 50 countries. We sell our beers in 200 countries. We have more than 20,000 farmers, 6 million customers globally, 2 billion consumers. And sometimes in building this puzzle, putting together the company, I think that we are very focused on the synergies of the beer category, and we didn't realize how much value still exists in this ecosystem that can be unlocked with things that we are already doing, right? And just think about, we have 10 million transactions per week with our customers. 10 million. So each day, there is 1.4 million transactions that they happen between a customer and an ABI point of sales. So when you think about that, those are opportunities that we have. One, to grow the beer category. Two, to expand our business beyond beer. And three, as we digitize our touch points, today more than 50% of our sales are somehow digitalized. We can have a lot of data that will allow us to create more value from this ecosystem. Think on the other side, this is downstream. Think upstream. We have 20,000 farmers. We are the largest buyer and fermenter of malt globally. Up until today, or a few years ago, what we would do is take this barley, malt it, ferment, and produce beer. In the fermentation process, the yeast takes all the starch, all the carbohydrate from the barley, and leaves the grain that is very rich in protein and fibers as a byproduct. This byproduct we were either giving away or selling at very low cost for people that put together food for cattle or other animals. Through technology, especially like biotech technology, we were able to do a separation with the fiber and the protein. And now we have an amazing amount of protein that is very high quality protein without any carbohydrate to that we can upsell, can transform in products that they go through bread production, pasta production, these enhanced milks with protein, and a lot of other possibilities they open by the same resources that we are using before, but now using technology to transform this in higher value.
Now, are you doing that already, or is that on the drawing board?
No, we have a pilot facility here in Newark, close to Newark, where we developed in partnership this technology and we start to commercialize. There is demand for that.
Right.
We have a huge investment in St. Louis, $100 million facility, and one in Belgium. These two big investments come to life next year, and we are already commercializing the product that we're going to be able to take out of these facilities to big companies in the US and Europe.
You talked about those 1.4 million consumer transactions and then collecting data. I'm wondering, are you going to be a direct-to-consumer company, number one? And number two, what about pricing, Michel? And do you have pricing power right now? There's a lot of talk about inflation.
Yeah, so the 1.4 million transactions per week, this is with our customers. With consumers, probably have many more interactions every week.
So would that be, so explain the 1.4, would that be at delivering to a grocery store?
To a point of sale.
Because it seemed actually kind of low to me. So that's not consumers drinking a beer, there'd be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so it's delivering to a grocery store, delivering to a bar. Okay, got it.
Think like this, while we talk here, last 60 seconds, 1,000 transactions between an ABI, point of distribution, and one point of sales happened.
Got it.
1,000. And all this data before was living there without being utilized. Now we built a very nice platform of B2B, we call BEES. And this platform is like an e-commerce tool for points of sales. And that's an incredible opportunity because we are used to big retailers, for example, in North America, But think about Latin America and Africa, how difficult it is for them to have a very reliable supply chain and be able to grow their businesses. Sometimes they don't have the cash, sometimes they don't have the product, sometimes they receive every 35, 45 days only, and we are there every week providing service to them. When you think about the consumers, we have today some very interesting tools as well in the e-commerce type of tool, where we have solving problems to consumers. The most common one is, we always ask ourselves this question, so why you can grab a phone and call someone and get like hot pizza in 1 hour or 35 minutes? Or now you go on an app and you can order your pizza and customize your pizza and have it delivered, but you cannot get cold beer when you need it. So we have in Brazil, now expanding to 14 countries in Latin America, we call Zé Delivery. It's like a courier platform. It's an app that you can go there, order your beer, and in 30 minutes, you receive this beer to your doorstep, cold, ready for consumption.
Now, I hope you have a deal with the pizza company so it comes at the same time. But that's maybe the next step.
In several places, this is already happening.
Let me shift gears a little bit, Michel, and ask you about you a little bit. You grew up in a rural town in Brazil and studied chemical engineering in college. How did you end up at Anheuser-Busch then?
So I was born and I grew up in Brazil, but my family is half Brazilian, half Greek. Mm-hmm. So I have somehow lived everywhere that you can name at this point, from Asia to Europe to North America and South America. And in the engineer course that I took, beer was a big thing, not only because people like to drink beer, but because fermentation is a chemical process and was part of our areas of study to study fermentation. So I visited several breweries. I always liked fermentation, yet was not my first job when I left college. At one point, I found this opportunity to join ABI. At that time was Brahma, a local Brazilian company in Brazil. This is 25 years ago. And you look back, a lot of fun, living several different places in Brazil, moving to a position that was Latin America. Then I moved to Asia. I lived 7 years in China, where I had China first, then our Asia business later, moved to global as Chief Sales Officer, then CEO at Anheuser-Busch in the US, which is like life going all the way through one side to the other. And now in the last, let's say, 5 months, had the privilege to be leading ABI globally.
Can you tell us quickly what that other job was, though?
I worked for a bank, actually.
A banker?
Yeah.
Are you going from a banker to work for a beer company? It sounds like a good move to me, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
It was.
And so you have this global perspective, obviously. How has that shaped your thinking? I mean, people say it's all very local, but you have to have a global perspective running a company with such a big footprint, right?
Yeah, I think that the fact of having the opportunity to work in different places, to live in a house that was very diverse, right? So my father Greek, my mother Brazilian, it always gave me like perspective into cultural differences and how to talk to people and understand what people want to do and value a lot communication. So when I put together all the countries that I lived in and all the places that I worked, it's like a huge collection of tools. Imagine this big backpack that every time that you move from one city to the other, you can always learn something. You add something to your backpack in terms of tools. And at one point in time, you find opportunities to use what you have learned from different people, different cultures, and to have like a different perspective when you analyze things. Of course, locally, you always need this local knowledge to solve local problems. And we are very focused on solving consumer problems and customer problems. And those are the real opportunities to grow our business. You could be very focused internally in what you are doing, or you can have more this outside-in perspective. People talk a lot about empathy. today.
Right.
I think that there is nothing more empathetic than understanding people needs, different culture aspects that they have, try to pay attention on what they want, and then be able in a company like ours to service them with the best products, high quality, great services, and something that they can trust. So our products globally, our brands, are brands that people trust because of our quality, and our customers, they like our service, and we are always investing to deliver better for them in what we can do.
2 quick last questions. 1, do you get to taste and test beer yourself? And yes, no?
You can ask around. So I taste a lot of products, almost all of them before they go to market.
Right. Okay.
And even products that are in development phase, like our protein that I just described, I bring home, I always taste it.
And you can't do that at a bank. And then finally, this is the toughest question. I don't know how you're going to handle it. Favorite one? Come on.
Everybody knows that I love Budweiser. This is one of the brands that I like the most. I have a long history with Budweiser, even before I joined the company. And I love this brand. I had the opportunity to work with Budweiser here in the US, to work with the brand globally, and work with the brand in China, which is a big market for us. And there is others. So I like beer all the way. I often say that I'm a beer guy. So there's people that are always hopping between one category and the other one. If I can choose, it's always beer.
Got it. All right, Michel Doukeris, CEO of AB InBev, thank you so much for your time. You've been watching Influencers. I'm Andy Serwer. We'll see you next time.